Without question, one of the greatest epics ever told, and thus is deserving of an equally epic review. And I think we delivered on that. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy back with another video for Studio Ghibli month, and today we'll be reviewing one of my all-time favorite films, animated or live action, and arguably the best film Studio Ghibli has ever produced. At least its most daring film that it's produced. Princess Mononoke. Although I don't think that it's entirely fair to say that we are doing this review, as I'm gonna let my special guest, MissART, take the reins in this review, but this time I will not be interjecting here and there. Why is that? Because after watching her part of the review, there is nothing more that I could possibly add that she did not already say in a better, more eloquent manner. I mean, her review blew me away, and after watching the entire thing, I said, I'm not touching this. This is just perfect. This is exactly the type of review Princess Mononoke needs, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to interfere. You're going to watch it through and through. There are a couple things I want to add before we get to her part. I mentioned in my Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind review that there was another film Miyazaki would do almost a decade later that was very similar to it. And I was referencing Princess Mononoke. Princess Mononoke is the better version of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. It's like Miyazaki took the concept of that earlier film, refined it over the years, and then made this epic masterpiece. In fact, I would almost say too that he's like, okay, let's take Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Pompoko, mash them up together, and here's Princess Mononoke. I also will say, I really like the English dub. I know a lot of people had issues with the English dub, but I thought for the time that they made this dub, they did a really good job. I know a lot of people said that they were talking really fast because they couldn't keep up with the mouth movements, but hey, again, they did an excellent job with the lip syncing and capturing the emotions of the characters. They felt just like the characters. I like Billy Crudup's performance as Ashitaka. I know a lot of people had issues because he's like, oh, it felt like he was overacting and he was always yelling, but I mean, his character is very passionate and he has to kind of like project his voice in many of the scenes that he's in. The best performance, in my opinion, was Mindy Driver as Lady Eboshi. Like, she captured that role perfectly. And freaking John DiMaggio is all over this film. He voices like, what, 1 billion characters in this film? Like, you'll hear his voice first, like, oh, okay, that's John DiMaggio's characters in this film. And then, it's like a few minutes later, you hear another character talking, you're like, hey, wait, isn't that John DiMaggio again? And then a couple minutes later, another character voiced by John DiMaggio. He just like be popping up all over the place. And I was kind of mad at him because he didn't try to differentiate from his different voices. They all sounded the same. If there's one issue I had with this film is the fact that John DiMaggio, a talented and revered voice actor, didn't like switch up his voices when portraying different characters. They all sounded very similar. So what happened, John? You're a better voice actor than that. Treese McNeil is in this film. Freaking Keith David, Gillian Anderson from The X-Files. I mean, they all did phenomenal work. And again, I love this film to death. It was actually the second Studio Ghibli film I saw after My Neighbor Totoro. In fact, after I rented My Neighbor Totoro, when we went back to that video store I told you in that review, Princess Mononoke was the next film I got, and I fell head over heels for it. Even as a kid, I fell in love with that film. And let me tell you, this film was rated PG-13. If this film was released today, it would never have gotten that rating. It would have been a hard R because of how violent this film is. It is one of the most brutal films I've ever seen, and I cannot believe a company that made freaking My Neighbor Totoro made a film like this. Although, I guess it shouldn't really surprise me since they also made Grave of the Fireflies, and that shit was depressing as well. So anyway, those are my thoughts that I wanted to say that she didn't emphasize in her review, but everything that she says in her review is exactly how I feel, and she put it in such an excellent way. And now I'm gonna shut up and let her take the reins. Oh, and if you want to know my grade, I mean, it's obvious. It's a 5 out of 5 stars. It's an epic masterpiece. And now that I've said my piece, take it away, MissART.
Hey! everyone, Miss Art here from the YouTube channel Miss Art, where I love to talk about anime and all that great stuff. I'm here today to share with you my review for 1997's Princess Mononoke, one of Hayao Miyazaki's all-time greatest films, which is saying something considering his masterful portfolio and his status as a living legend of directing. Now, my first introduction to this movie actually took place back when I was 12, and I had no idea what I was getting into. This movie is definitely not for children, and it creeped the hell out of me. What did you rent me, Mom? But now, as an adult person, this is definitely one of my favorite animated films, even though the wiggly things still kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. Now let's jump into what makes this film such an incredible masterpiece, even for Miyazaki. If you are at all familiar with any of Miyazaki's work, which would be surprising if you weren't, and I feel sorry for you, you may have noticed one of his favorite themes that runs through most of his work, that being nature and the spectacle and wonder of the natural world. Princess Mononoke serves as Miyazaki's ultimate ode to nature and mankind's relationship to it. Through spectacular story, characters, animation, and music, Miyazaki delivers an engaging and action-packed epic that serves to suggest that balance is the ultimate solution for the age-old struggle of man versus nature. You know you're getting into something special with this film within the first 10 minutes. Miyazaki masterfully sets up the mystical and violent tone of this movie as we are introduced to our selfless young hero, Ashitaka. The action and imagery is so captivating and so well placed that we can't help but be drawn in, just as Ashitaka cannot resist the pull of fate now guiding him on his new journey. The attack from the boar leaves his arm with a fatal curse, and so now it is his goal to search out a cure. Little does he know, though, that his marked arm is actually now a metaphor for the struggle between man and nature. A struggle that we see has aggression and hatred at its heart, a struggle that he will need to become the mediator to. Aside from this opening scene, Miyazaki masterfully sets the stage for this turbulent struggle between man and nature by introducing our young hero Ashitaka to the two locations that best symbolize the seat of human power, which is Irontown, and the seat of nature's power, the spirit forest. In his effort to, quote, see the situation with unclouded eyes, our hero spends time exploring both of these locations, getting to know personally the denizens and their motivations, which is very clever storytelling because it results in us, the audience, feeling very sympathetic to both sides of the conflict. We get to see the best and the worst from both sides. We can understand man's need to reap the land, to create iron in order to protect ourselves from nature and from our fellow man. But we can understand the ugly greed and disconcern for life that can result from these motivations. On the flip side, we can also feel empathy for the spirits and animals whose home is being carved and destroyed by man. But we can also see how their desperation and anger transforms them into demons that blindly lash out, literally in some cases, and compels them to consider foul acts that even go outside nature's laws. So by providing this remarkably balanced view in his story of the quickly deteriorating relationship between man and nature, Miyazaki cleverly places us, the audience, in the middle of it alongside our hero Ashitaka. By doing this, Miyazaki encourages us not to take a side, just like Ashitaka, which is pretty radical considering how much violence and how many battles are in this movie. Rather, Miyazaki encourages us to interpret this age-old struggle we see playing out on screen as being a part of a natural cycle that, though very violent, is not inherently good or bad. As long as balance between man and nature is ultimately achieved, then life will always go on, even if it might look differently at the end. Now, if Ashtaka is the prince of peacemaking in this story, then San and Lady Eboshi are the respective princesses of each side of the conflict in the film. Strong, faceted female characters are yet another trademark of Miyazaki's work, and these two ladies are no exception. They are masterfully crafted to balance each other out, and they reflect the film's theme of duality and balance. Lady Eboshi, though the one leading the charge on killing the spirits and destroying the forest, is also shown to have immense compassion for people who would be considered untouchables to society. Irontown is partially populated by former brothel workers and lepers. Under Lady Eboshi's strong leadership and vision, the town is prosperous, and her assaults in battle, though deadly, are largely successful. She may at first be set up as a potential antagonist for this story, but through the humanity that Miyazaki expertly weaves into her character, she is ultimately seen as an imperfect but inspiring person. San, on the flip side, is just as passionate about her home and its spirit families. She makes a great foil to Eboshi, for whereas the Lady of Irontown is strategic like man, San is impulsive and instinctual like a beast. And just as Lady Eboshi is initially set up as an antagonist only to sidestep such an oversimplification, San is first introduced to us as a potential hero only to show us sides of her that align more with terrorism and cold-heartedness. The complexity of her character is revealed as later we are shown her ability for great compassion and her willingness to give 1000% to save her friends. We also see her warming up when she finally connects with her human side by connecting and building a relationship with Ashtaka. So just like the war they waged, these two women are nuanced, and there is no clear-cut line between good and evil, right or wrong. They're simply people who feel very human, though one believes she is a wolf, that are caught on two different sides of a war. Because of his sympathetic outlook towards both sides, Ashtaka makes a great balance between these strong women. He is literally the middleman, but he is not without his own internal struggles, which is what warms him to us, the audience. We see him having to deal with his own resentment and rage, which is reflected every time his cursed arm goes out of his control. He is a badass, but he's also shown to have great compassion as well. His character's appealing noble spirit and selflessness to seek a solution successfully carries us through the conflict and resolution of this film. This sensitivity to the human condition as being neither inherently good or evil, or necessarily just for humans or animals, is also reflected in the lively supporting cast of this movie. We come to know a wonderful spectrum of souls from both sides that make us smile and feel resentment and overall just have an emotional resonance with. And this once again just speaks to the high level of Miyazaki's craftsmanship and storytelling. To experience even one Studio Ghibli film is to know the time, passion, and detail that goes into every frame of each of their features. Miyazaki's immense love of nature is on full display in this film. There are so many enchanting moments that draw us in visually and invite us to meditate on the grandeur that is the natural world. And amazingly, this is one of those films that succeeds in seamlessly blending traditional cell animation with CGI. It is done with such skill and care that you might not have even noticed both techniques were employed. And for me, as both an animation fan and anime fan, that's the kind of interplay that I most enjoy. The whimsical and lifelike designs of the spirit creatures in particular really speaks to the beauty and horror that exists in nature and in the imaginations of man. We are left coming away from this masterpiece of cinema with visuals we will soon not forget. All of it amplified by a sweeping soundtrack that just perfectly mirrors the grand scale of the storytelling. In the future, when Miyazaki's final portfolio of work is considered, there is no doubt that Princess Mononoke will still stand as one of his enduring masterpieces alongside Spirited Away. It is an epic tour de force in every sense, especially in its ability to tap into our collective anxieties as a human race regarding our own current environmental situation as we see the effects of industrialization impacting our own world. Though we probably will not have to face a giant unbalanced metaphorical spirit force that can control life and death, Miyazaki in this film does leave us with a sense of hope that we can strike a balance as well in regards to our own environmental struggles. That no matter the conflict that will arise between man and nature, and it always will arise, there in turn will always be balance. And I think this is actually most symbolized once again in our hero Ashitaka, whose name in Japanese also kind of sounds like Ashitaka, which means tomorrow, as in there is always a promise for life, even if it is altered or even unfamiliar. Princess Mononoke gets a 9.5 out of 10 in my book, any day, all day. I believe everyone should give it a watch. It displays all the best qualities of Miyazaki and his work. So if you haven't seen it, go definitely make some time for it. But as always, if you have watched it or have not watched it yet, please share your thoughts below in the description box. We'd love to read them. And of course, a big thank you to Tony, the Black Critic Guy. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this review. It was a lot of fun. And once again, if you're not familiar with me, my name is MissART. Please feel free to check out my YouTube page where I talk about anime and all that good stuff. All you have to do is Google MissART, MISSART, and you will find me. I'm also active on the socials, predominantly Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. So yeah, go check me out on those. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Oh, come on. You knew we couldn't end this review without the traditional BCG send-off. First off, I want to thank MissART for her excellent review on Princess Mononoke. Again, she captured everything that I felt about this film, but presented it in a much more intriguing and well-structured fashion. Please go check out her channel. She's a great gal. She makes great videos. Thank you so much for being a part of this, MissART. You were awesome. And also stay tuned. More Studio Ghibli Month reviews, more anime reviews, movie reviews, all that good stuff is on its way, guys. And if you would like to support the Black Critic Guy just a smidge more, why not donate to my Patreon account? Link is in the description. And if you want to send me any fan letters, send it to this P.O. box right up here. And as always, guys, if you would like to see more videos on this channel and not miss out on a single Studio Ghibli review, please hit that subscribe button below, like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm talking about in a second, sending off into the wild to discover oneself as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.